Welcome. We interrupt this regularly scheduled program to bring you a special report. Dun, 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 dun. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Nicole.
Welcome to Beers and Biscuits, a dogcast for the rest of us. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Karen.
Grab a beverage, give your dog a biscuit, and enjoy the conversation.
And what a conversation this is about to be. I feel like we packed so much in our time with our very, very special guest on this very, very special edition of Beers and Biscuits.
We did.
Excited and slightly nervous for this one.
Yes, so nervous, right? Like so nervous going into this. It's like surreal. I guess it's surreal is the word I'm looking for, but on so many levels, like interviewing somebody famous,
right?
was like weird in itself.
I think for me personally, I wasn't really nervous about that part just because I try really hard to not idolize quote unquote famous people. Not that that's what you're doing. not that you're doing that. I think the only person
idolize
that,
you, Karen.
Well, I idolize you, but that's because you're one of us common folk, and I appreciate you. I think the only celebrity I would probably like actively cry if I met would be like Paul Pierce, but that's just a random Celtics player.
No poop, really?
But we
out of everybody in the universe, Paul Pierce.
Yes, yeah, pretty much.
For our fans, the few fans that we have, that don't know who Paul Pierce is.
He is a Boston Celtic, or well, he was. Well, no, he is. He's retired now, but he was Boston Celtic on the 2008 NBA championship team, and I followed his career through all of my years, and I deeply, deeply love him. But I think what I was getting at is that I was more nervous about the topic of conversation than actually who we were speaking to. For me, that's how I was nervous about this.
Yeah, so not me. I was totally opposite.
Yeah.
Totally opposite. Yeah. It was, to me, I feel like we've, or at least I have in my own personal, what's the word? My own personal journey.
Yeah.
Have delved into a lot of the topics that we talked about. So I feel like because I've talked about especially the working dog conversation from a trainer perspective, because I feel like I've talked about that a lot in various ways, you know, how it shaped me as a person, how it shaped me as a trainer, the level of guilt that I still hold about that. I feel like that for me was just kind of like a second nature conversation. So I can see
I just realized it. I should turn that off, actually. My bad.
My bad. But I can see where for somebody that is not in or hasn't done that job or lived through that experience, I can understand that might be daunting for sure.
I'm deeply distracted by my ceiling fan right now. I'm trying to see if it's gonna is that gonna stop now, or is it gonna still keep going?
It's gonna go super slow now and be worse.
Welcome to Beers and Biscuits, where we just wonder.
But so we're doing this on video.
I know.
So people can actually see what goes on behind the scenes now.
The absolute chaos that is.
The chaos and the shenanigans. Total shenanigans. Look at this going on here. Look at how wrinkled. Look at, I'm such a frump. professional. So
classy here.
professional.
We're so
Yeah.
classy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think so, to your point, like for me personally, right now, the climate for police officers
Mm.
is not what it was 5, 10 years ago, you know? So it's hard for me to talk about being married to a cop
Right.
because I know just that sentence alone is going to get me so much hate and
And it
so much.
has. It
And
has.
it
I
has.
mean,
So then the next thing for me is I feel like people are going to think that I'm fence sitting, where I'm saying, as they'll hear, that I believe there's still a place for police dogs. Does that place need massive changes? Yes. But I feel like the dog community so vehemently wants people to be just flat out against it that I'm
mm-hmm.
going to get hate from both sides. And that's what makes me nervous because I need to be able to speak my truth
Right.
just like everybody else is allowed to. Um, so, yeah, I'm definitely nervous about this one, especially with potentially
It's
so many
okay.
people.
I got your back.
I got
Always.
yours. No.
But I mean, I understand where you're coming from, right? Because you bring to that conversation, especially about the working dogs, a different perspective, right? That um, is very seldom heard from, and that is being the wife of a police officer. And so your feelings are just as valid as anybody else's. But I can understand where you're coming from, that you feel like in this conversation, you're going to be damned if you do, damned if you don't, basically.
Yeah, and Neil and I were talking about this before we came in to record this, about how, and I am not saying this to disparage myself in any way, but at the end of the day, I am just the wife of a canine handler. So I am adjacent to that world. I am
Mm-hmm.
not in it. Yes, I'm in the dog world in general, but I'm not going to canine training days. I'm not going to the certifications that he needs to go to, those kind of things. So I also want to make sure that I'm towing that line as somebody, like you said, that isn't, that hasn't lived it like you have, because I don't want to overspeak on something that doesn't, that I haven't actually done, you know, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I'm very thankful that Zach and Bree are lending their voice and their platform to this conversation.
Um, that reminds me that we didn't actually say who we were interviewing.
Oh, no big deal. You know, we just casually had Zach
Oh.
and Bree George on our
Mm-hmm.
little podcast. No big deal.
Yep.
No
I
big
mean,
deal.
maybe we'll get one more listener now.
I mean, like
um,
I was saying again, I was talking when Neil and I were talking about this because we want to make sure that we are accurately telling our story and our side of things. I was going somewhere with this, but it just started pouring out, and it took my train of thought. This really is what Beers and Biscuits is like.
you're worried about the rain, and I'm worried about this wrinkle over here.
Right? It's just chaos. But we want. What was I saying? We're a small. I
About
was talking to
your
Neil,
right.
and just that. I'm definitely nervous about the idea that potentially, when I looked up, when I was doing our due diligence and our research on our guests, roughly collectively they have 5 million followers.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that I'm going to be the police officer's wife saying all of this stuff. I'm like, okay, that makes me sweat. That makes me sweat. But regardless, we have to have these conversations.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I think, too, one of the things that we try to get to with that conversation is the fact that no matter where we're coming to that conversation from, I mean, just like you said, there needs to be changes. Nobody is saying that there doesn't
Correct.
on a overarching, on a total complete scale. And so I don't want that message to be missed. Hopefully it won't be. Hopefully people will be able to listen to the whole thing and not make snap judgments about things, either because of who we had on or the topic that we were talking about or what have you. But we did cover a lot of other things as well. We talked about the dumpster fire that is dog training social media.
So much fun. So much fun. Well, and I think too, the last thing I want to say before I stop rambling about these things, but I have a lot to say about it still, is that, like you said, I hope people don't have snap judgments, that they really listen, because that was my biggest thing that I wanted to impart on this episode, was the need to have actual conversations.
Right.
And inviting the people who are actually walking the walk right now. Not that you're not, but and Zach and Bree aren't, but neither of you guys are working directly with police dogs right now.
Right.
So I'm very excited that we will have a follow-up to this episode where Neil lends his voice to the conversation. And him and I were talking about trying to recruit somebody. So Neil's police dog, Rosie, she is a bomb detection dog. So while she is not the apprehension dogs that we mainly focused on, we're hoping to find a colleague that does have one of those dogs that is willing to lend their voice to the conversation as well. So if any of this episode resonates with people, I hope they will continue to listen to the people that are actually in it right now.
It's hard, right? Because I'm not that type of person that is that bridge the gap person. Right? But I feel like all of it, right? Like it's all of it needs some sort of work. But I think the thing that sometimes is missing is, and you said it in the episode too, is that the people actually doing the job also, for the most part, want those changes too. And so it's not just going into it like what we see, like the rest of dog social media is I'm balanced or I'm compulsion or I'm what have you. And my goal is to continue in that. And then, I'm positive reinforcement, I'm welfare based, and my goal is to continue in that. Whereas my goal is to have better treatment of working dogs, right? But that's also their goal, to have better treatment of working dogs. So I feel like in this particular conversation, there is, if we can cut through the noise and the bullshit, we're probably more in line than we think we are.
And that actually, I wrote a note down for one of the things I wanted to say in this.
Of course you did.
That's a big deal for me to actually write it down. Was, I think you're spot on that so many people want these changes, but the media attention is the problem. All we're seeing currently, well, it's not the only problem, but it's part of the problem, is that all we see on the media around dogs is the negative. But I think if the media especially can start highlighting the positives and showing the changes that a lot of the agencies are making towards more positive reinforcement based methods, that the more we're talking about that, the more other agencies will say, why aren't we doing it that way? Because then they won't want to be those bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I was just going to say, I think that as positive reinforcement people, if we can also focus more on the positives outside of directly working with dogs, we'll start to see some more positive changes too. But I know
Yeah.
I'm a rose-colored glasses person sometimes.
No, I mean, I think that's why I really hope people will listen to the entire episode, because it's not just that one thing that we're talking about, right? And so
Right.
I know another thing that we brought up in the episode too is that when we change the way that we, let's say, change the way that we view our dogs in police work, and we start adopting better training methods in police work, that also informs the rest of our thinking about our job and how we're doing it. And so it's not just, these little pieces that will change. It's this overarching idea that, okay, if I'm a current canine officer, and maybe, like I did in my past, did some pretty horrible training, but now I am embracing more welfare-based training. Now I'm embracing more understanding about dog sentience, right? I'm understanding more about learning. I'm understanding more about punishment culture and all of those things. Because I know how much those concepts changed me fundamentally as a person, I can't think that they won't also change other people.
We have to continue to allow ourselves to learn and grow and change. And I also believe that, and this is me personally, that if we're continuing to focus on what has happened in the past, yes, we need to learn it so we can learn from it and grow. But if everybody just wants to continue focusing on what police dogs have done in the past, then they will never grow. The system will never change. It will never get better.
Right. We'll always be in reaction mode.
Yes, we need to learn it. We need to learn from it. But we also need to grow. We can't just stick right there.
Right.
And I think I think we can certainly dive more into this with Neil as well. I don't want to take up all of our intro time talking about this before we even get to it. But I think we have to allow people to grow and change. And then that trickles down to our dogs. It starts by listening to what everybody has to bring to the table. We don't necessarily have to agree. I don't think this podcast, we set out to change anybody's mind. I don't think that was the tone of it. I think it was just a conversation of what has been, what currently is, and what hopefully will be. Well, shall we just get into it?
Let's get into it, Karen.
Here we go.
No, you're great. Awesome. It's so awesome to see you all.
I know.
Really
I
appreciate
know. This is, I will admit, I am super nervous about this.
Oh, so you shouldn't
I
be.
am so excited to talk to you guys because I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I hope this isn't over speaking, but I just already feel like I know you. We spend so much time in the comments together, and I just appreciate you both. Like, I'm so glad you're out there in the world just doing what you do. It means so much to me because every time that I see either one of you pop up, it's like a wave of relief. I'm like, oh, my friends, this is so good.
It's all right. It's all right. Peter's got it from here.
Yeah.
I just need you guys to come into my life like every couple of minutes and just say that. Just pump me up.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Please. Glad to.
I'll just set a reminder to text you like every 20 minutes, Karen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So welcome, guys. I'm so happy that we made this work.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. We appreciate everything that you do. You're such advocates for modern training and helping people understand this issue and why it's difficult to understand, I think, for a lot of people. You bring a lot of clarity to that, and that's really helpful.
I hope so, because I'm not generally well received.
Oh,
but it's all right. I'm used to it.
the loudest booze are from the cheap seats, I've heard someone say.
Yes. Yeah. I try sometimes, too, to really dumb it down.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Still sometimes doesn't work, so.
Yeah.
But I try.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you doing the experiment. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
we're doing our first podcast in a few days.
Really?
Interview that I haven't done with Dr. Eduardo Fernandez.
Oh, yes. Very
from
nice.
the Light Study.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, there's lots to learn technically still to make sure we do everything okay. So.
Yeah. By doing our first podcast, he means hosting.
Yes.
Instead of,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's easy to be a guest because you're just like, what's the link? I'll figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So good luck. I'm excited. It's a really good guest to have on.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
we were glad he wrote us right back and wanted to talk, and we were like, awesome. We'll figure it out. Let's do it. This is going to be good information to share.
Fun.
Awesome. So, so what we like to do to start is we have a couple of icebreaker questions to kind of break the ice.
Dive right in.
Oh, Karen's always on me about doing things in the proper order.
So let's dive on in. But before we get to the customary icebreaker questions, for anyone living under a rock, do our wonderful guests want to take a moment to briefly introduce themselves?
Oh, I'm Zach, and this is Bree, and we make dog training videos and advocacy videos on the internet to try and raise awareness around issues that relate to our field.
Yeah. That's us.
That's very to the point. Very right.
Yeah, the long-winded introductions that's pretty much the bottom line, I feel like. But
Zach George, I feel like our page will speak for itself if you would like to check it out. We'd love to have you.
there you go.
Yep. All right, Karen, take it away with your first question.
All right, so we are very serious about our icebreakers. And my question for you is, who is the most interesting Disney character?
Most interesting.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Scar is my favorite.
Not
Scar the
most
lion.
interesting.
And he's interesting.
I agree. He's pretty great.
He's interesting and my favorite.
I mean, technically, The Little Mermaid's very interesting because she's like kind of
Ariel or the
Okay. Yeah, Ariel. Because she's like half of a fish and half of a person. That's interesting.
Biologically interesting.
Yeah, that would be a scientific marvel.
You're right. That is interesting.
One is,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, one is a mammal and one is not. And like, how does that? That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. That is true. Like, what does that look like on the inside?
Is she warm-blooded? Never thought about it.
There are a lot of interesting questions. Yeah.
Right.
I thought the platypus was interesting, but that.
And I do like Scar too, because he's got a lot of layers. He's got a lot of layers. He's kind of like moody and dark, but at the same time, you know, there's like a lot going on under there that, like, if you could just pull back some of those layers, like, he's probably really cool underneath.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's clear that there's a lot of history that got him to where he is at the point where he's like, be prepared. Like, stuff happened before that. And I feel like he's a very complicated character.
Good answer.
All right. So my question is, what is the weirdest thing in your refrigerator right now?
Oh, wow. This is a timely question because we've been going through a cooking phase like we have never gone through before, trying to emulate it. What is your adjective?
Weirdest.
Weirdest, yeah.
What's the
Chinese 5-spice I just discovered, and that was weird to me.
Oh, we should be able to do much better than that.
I know.
But that was great, that Chinese 5-spice.
I never knew that was a thing, and I was like, wow, and I overused it, and that was weird. If you use too much, it becomes pretty weird.
Yeah, actually, it was that sauce that I made, that Chinese sauce, I think, which is kind of weird because it's hard. It's not from, no one ever taught me, but the internet taught me. And it's a Mandarin brown gravy sauce. So that's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. We also have a neighbor who sustainably harvests salmon, and we have 1 or 2 of those in our freezer that he gave us. A Copper River salmon. I feel like that's a very Alaskan answer. So
he came over with a whole fish, and he said, "This one's ready for the oven," in a big gallon bag.
I mean, filleted, but like
not very, only minimally filleted.
That's how you know it's a good fish. He caught it on Sunday and was like, "Here you go. I brought this to you."
Great question. Very original questions, folks.
But we have another in the freezer anyway.
I love it.
We take these seriously.
Karen, what's weird in your fridge? I know you got some weird shit in there.
I actually don't really. Well, I have the Zen sauce that I just bought. It's like a marinade. Oh no, I take it back. For anybody, don't be upset. I have a whole rabbit's foot in my freezer right now for the dogs. So,
interesting.
That's probably the weirdest thing I have.
Mm-hmm. I knew you had something in there.
I see rabbit's feet on Instagram as a dog enrichment thing. I'm not like in a place where I know about that right now.
I can't. It's my sister has rabbits, and so it's like.
Oh, I do have a whole pig's foot in there too. I do have some weird stuff in my fridge.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So,
Sorry. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, now that we've taken a turn and we've wandered, Nicole, as we do, let's bring this back. So we have a lot we want to hopefully cover, and very excited that you're willing to lend your voice to this conversation. Mm-hmm. I think we'll start off with some of the easier aspects of the conversation we're hoping to have. Nicole and I really wanted to first zero in on social media and the experience of dog trainers and just the average folk alike, and how you go about managing it all. I think Nicole had a more specific question, but
I did. So I obviously come from a different place. I don't use my social media in any way, shape, or form to build a business, have a business, anything like that. And Karen and I have talked about it before where, if I want to just take off from social media, it's not a big deal. Where, she's trying to build her business. And so it is, we come from different places with that. But I wanted to kind of get you guys' take on this idea that because you're a presence on social media, that you somehow have an obligation to field questions from people, right? And so where do you guys sit with that now versus when you first started, right? Because I feel like this idea of social media is prompting people to feel like that they are obligated to your life, obligated to your thoughts on things, whether or not you really want to share that. We've seen a change in the posting of your page and the way that things have gone, which I'm all for. I love it. But I feel like there's still that faction of people that are like, you owe this to me. You owe me this type of content versus this is your page and this is what you're doing with it. And hopefully you guys can come along with us. If not,
it's a double-edged sword, kind of like over the years. It gives us, when it's legitimate, either criticism or questions or whatever, it gives us an opportunity to create content, which is win-win for everybody. We need to produce content to help the world understand the issue better. And if we start to get the same type of question or response, we know, okay, that's something we need to dig deeper into. So it's like one step at a time. And I look at it as an opportunity to do that. Now, naturally, when you have discussed something a lot of times, and people are still, and you're just going in circles with yet a new person who's just come on board, then, you have to try and direct them to kind of look back to see what's been said and things like that. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, I really want to know, like, from you guys, like personally, like you guys personally, how you feel about, like, so what I get a lot is I get people that will say, well, you're clearly not a professional. You don't know what you're talking about because your page is private. Well, my page is private because I don't want people like you on my page. I mean, we could do the circular reasoning all day, but it's almost like I owe them something of myself, that they feel obligated to this piece of me, which is to me so uniquely social media, right? Like it's this social media piece. Like I never felt that way before that. Like I never felt like any client wanted that level of access to my personal life. But I feel like now that we're in social media, it's like those two become one, right? So it's like, you can't have this page where you're discussing topics that are wholly personal to you that also have larger implications in the world because you're a dog trainer.
Right.
And so you have to only do dog training stuff. They feel like they deserve this access to dictate personal, like your personal access.
You can respond if you want.
Oh, yeah.
I'll remember.
I mean, sure. There are people who overstep boundaries. There are people who overstep boundaries, I think, which is what you're kind of getting at there. But at the same time, I recognize that I'm putting myself out there, that I am being critical of ideas, and I expect that kind of pushback. Now, because they request that piece of me or they're trying to get that piece of me, doesn't mean I have to respond either. And so I still view, I think we're still in the driver's seat. Like sometimes I will welcome that criticism or that challenge, and other times I can ignore it. It depends how legitimate we think it is, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it can still take a toll on one's mental health if they're not, really centered and really understand their values or whatever. Over the years, we've had to learn how to manage that effectively, and I think we're at a pretty good place right now. But yeah, is that what you're asking? Have I answered that sufficiently, or should I?
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Bree, did you have? Yeah.
Sure.
Bree's like, let me in there.
Since you asked our personal thoughts, right? My pieces.
Yeah.
I feel, okay, wait, let me gather it myself. I think that you asked about whether our feelings have changed over time, and our obligation for sharing information and stuff. And I just think it's a really good question. It resonates with me. So that's why I was like, me too. I thought too. I feel like our feelings haven't changed over time, but sometimes you realize what you really feel. You refine your view. You refine how you view your own feelings, even if your feelings don't change. And for the first full decade, at least probably, that I worked with Zach, the way that we spoke was to the general public, to people who have dogs, who want to learn how to train them. And as we've shifted to sometimes talking to people who are dog trainers, who say, I'm a dog trainer and, this is my profession or whatever, I feel like the tone, the reception of the things we say has changed. And I think maybe that's kind of what you're asking about. And my personal feeling on that is that when someone declares that they're a dog trainer, whether they're 14 or 40, it's a responsibility that you take on when you say, I am going to teach other people to teach their dogs. And I think if you're able to take on the responsibility of saying that, you also are able to take on the responsibility of doing your due diligence on what you've declared. And so I find it, especially from adults who are established dog trainers who've been practicing a lot out in the world, I find it personally very frustrating to see them say, I will not take this information in until you, Zach George, take my hand and convince me your own darn self. Like, I find that to be a very silly and immature viewpoint, and it concerns me. It concerns me and frustrates me a bit that there are so many people out there who think that that's a legitimate thing to say. I'm like, aren't you a little embarrassed to say that? Don't you want to take responsibility for yourself here? Or do you
No, because that's hard. That's hard. That takes a lot of looking at yourself in an intimate way, looking at what your capabilities are and what your capabilities are not, and taking the steps to grow. And that is hard for people. And anybody that, sorry, my glasses, my old lady glasses. When people come back with that, it's classic deflection, right? I'm going to throw this back on you because it's too hard to look at me. I just got that today, where somebody asked a question and I answered it. They didn't like the answer. So now it's my job to educate them. No, it was my job to educate me. And I spent a lot of time doing it. I will help you. I will help anybody. If they legitimately want to learn something, I will help them. But it is not my job to educate you, especially if you're going to call yourself a professional. Like, it's not my job to handhold you.
Because we kind of made it our job to educate the public. That's what we want to do. That's what we hope to do. And so if 3 million people come and ask the same question to me as the general public, I want to hear that. And, sometimes we're in the comments directly answering. And if we're not, we're always reading them and taking note of, like, did one person ask this, or was it 5 or 30? When do we want to make a video about it? What are the common questions from the public that we want to be sure to answer, even if we've answered them before? Because if we've answered them before and they're still asking a million times, then clearly we haven't maybe answered it well enough or haven't done a good enough job getting that video out to them. So I think when those things come from the general public, I just have absolutely endless patience. And that's something I learned from Zach. So I'm really just parroting him. But
yes,
I think once the dog trainers come in and are like, why haven't you convinced me yet? I'm like, bro, like, have you done anything? I don't know. It's a totally different thing to me.
Yeah. I
can't imagine.
Yeah.
Roughly 5 million collective followers, more or less. Just the onslaught of comments and information being thrown at you every day, and navigating that and still doing it in a way that is positive reinforcement based, because if 5 million people were coming at me, I can't say that I would always be as polite as you guys, but that's a special skill in and of itself.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to differentiate between the dog owner and the dog trainers, and you guys do a really beautiful job, I think.
And I think that's amazing. And he's talking over arduous years, because in the first years I was like, I'm so hot. I'm looking at these people are being mean to you, Zach. How could they? They don't know you. And he was like, no, it's fine.
But you think though too, but it is a skill, right? And I know we've talked about it. And even one of the questions that I got from Instagram for you guys kind of hints at this too, is that your level of patience is ridiculous. Like ridiculous.
Hear that?
Well, for this, I don't know you personally, but
we trade off.
Just in terms of like fielding the questions that aren't from the general public, right? I've got no filter. It's pretty clear that I have no filter left.
I'm here for it.
But it's like, at the same time, I try to reel that back in if I know I'm talking to a guardian versus somebody who says they're a trainer. Like, I try so hard to reel myself in, because I try to always look. Clearly we know the repeat offenders on your page, like, but if it's, I try to like look and see, okay, is this person just like a guardian, or is it, say, like, dog trainer, master dog trainer extraordinaire to the entire world, on their profile. But even still, like, I don't know how you maintain the patience. Like, I don't like.
Well, no, I'm not perfect. I've been known to go off the handle a time or two on a live thing, And
when you're unhinged, I'm like, boy, you have not seen a lot of us if you think that That's unhinged.
Right. But yeah, it can test us sometimes. But yeah, at the end of the day, I still consider it a net positive to be in a position to be able to advocate, and that enough people, like yourselves, support the message, and that we can work together. I mean, that to me outweighs any of the negative, like by a lot.
Yeah.
So what was kind of the catalyst then for you making this change on the content that you were putting out versus like from the active, even though you still put that out, even though the world refuses to accept that you do. What was the catalyst for the change?
I don't know that there's I can understand why it appears as though there's been a change in the type of content we put out.
I mean, there has, but it evolved.
Well, yeah, but I have always from day one on YouTube been critical of aversive dog training methods going back to 2006. And in my books and everything. So it is still something that I've been very outspoken about consistently throughout my career, though maybe the more you uncover, the more you learn, the more you want to convey to the public, I guess. And, I've learned more as well. But the catalyst obviously the Dog Daddy campaign was a very important thing. I'd heard privately from enough dog trainers that I respect that this was a problem, and they were asking for my assistance to help raise awareness around this and see if we could get something done.
Well, yeah, because Zach will get messages that are like, I'm not the best at confrontation, but it seems like you can take it. And there's this injustice. Is there anything you could do? And, clearly the Dog Daddy issue, we got more messages than we ever have along those lines.
Yeah.
So.
And then, so that prompts us to look deeper. Okay, why is this such an issue? Why is there such resistance? Which leads us on to, the more we study, the more tangled up we realize how it is. People use these outdated methods for a variety of different reasons. I mean, it's not just one reason or another. It's not just lack of education, though it can be. Toxic masculinity, we've talked about quite a bit. The alpha bros out there trying to show how tough they are with a dog. So yeah, lack of education, that misogyny. I mean, colonialism is what we're currently exploring, a lot of that, and its centuries-long influence in the way that we do everything, not the least of which is training dogs.
And I think you've sort of, as you're saying it, I'm realizing that it may seem, I don't want to show too many cards here, because we do put a lot of thought into our content, but maybe it seems like we have this plan where we're going to shift into more activism. But honestly, our page is really a reflection, as we are learning things or unlearning things or however it may be, it shows up in our content. And I think everyone's exploring colonialism right now, or many people, there's a lot of things that are showing up that I think are relevant for us and also many other people in a lot of areas of the world, and not just dog training, because it's all ends up I'm trying to learn about aversive dog training, and I end up learning about the police system, the prison system. You just end up going so far with, and then you're like, wait, how did we get to those countries in the first place? I guess, okay, reeling it back in, my short answer is I think that our content reflects what we learn as we learn, and we just really are always trying to do better. And so we're we better make a new video because we learned a new thing. Let's share it. Let's make sure everybody knows about this. Let's hear what people have to say.
Yeah. I think for the most part too, the people, and I've said it before, the people that are your people understand that there is this kind of organic growth that's happening. And in that, we do want to question things, and we do want to understand why things are the way they are, or how they ended up the way they ended up. And that's from my perspective, I can kind of see how that progression happened.
Yeah, those of you who are really around, you're like, oh, I remember when on that live, they were like, oh my gosh, what? And,
is that just the weirdest thing? Because I can't imagine what it's like to have that many people know you and remember. Does that just ever freak you out? That 5 million people know who you are?
No. I mean, in terms of celebrity culture, we are an F-list celebrity. Okay, so we're down there. This is the most minimal amount of fame a person can probably have. And it can be a little annoying at times to be trying to grocery shop. But I always enjoy meeting people in real life. But it's not, I'm not that big now.
Nicole and I were having a hoot as we were doing our research and prep for this. When we Google you, you come up as Zach George is a famous person who is known worldwide for his work.
Oh,
it doesn't say what the work is, but
so funny.
You're famous because of the work.
It does go on to say his rise to prominence has resulted from his/her dedication to hard work. So
Aw, love it.
Yeah.
I feel like I got a shout out there with the pronouns.
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, I think it's funny. I think it's funny. So that kind of brings me into this question / comment that we got from a follower of yours, also a friend of mine. Angela said, first of all, thank you. Thank you for using your platform, for doing the things that we have been trying to do. Thank you. And I know I have said that before too, that, you know, I am so thankful that you are doing this, because we have been trying to get some sort of traction for years and years and years. And this idea that we should just be quiet about methods, guess what? That hasn't worked. It didn't work a decade ago. It didn't work 2 decades ago. And so from your people that get you, we thank you. We really do.
It's really nice of you to say. And mutual. You can't do it if you don't have people who are echoing your voice. And I try to echo people's voices who have a good message, and other people do that for us. So we'd be nowhere without supporters to help us.
Oh,
I feel like I just got a hug.
a virtual hug. Yeah.
That means so much to me.
Then the other half of her thing that she sent me was, and how do you deal with all this shit? Basically, burnout. Like, what does that look like for you guys? Like,
systematic desensitization. We're very desensitized to it. This is so you get to, you just accept this as, I mean, I guess we accepted that we were in the metaphorical war a couple of years ago and made sure that we were in a wartime environment, kind of, in our industry, aside from doing our day job of helping people learn how to teach their dogs and things like that. And so I think we mentally prepared for that. What?
It's kind of a weird, I don't know. Well, I feel like that's a weird way to describe it.
I mean, it is.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So there was this time where Zach, because I especially am not very good at confrontation. I get like sweaty palms even just talking about, like, right now. I'm like, oh my God, I hate it. And there was this point years ago after we had been sharing largely only dog training, positive, showing the right way to do it content for a very long time, with the exception of why Cesar Milan is yesterday's dog trainer. There'd be 1 or 2 videos here or there that we would throw in and be like, just so you guys know, this is what we think about this, or which kind of collar should you choose for your dog. But then for the most part, we were talking proactively about what you should do.
right.
And there was this point a few years ago where Zach was like, you need to make sure that you are mentally strong because it's coming. We're going to do it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get there. I'm going to become mentally strong. And I remember at the time, yeah, I mean, but it's hard to receive. I don't remember what prompted him to say it to me, but I distinctly remember him saying it because I think about it a lot. And I bet it was because I was in the comments feeling upset, because usually I'm in there and I'm just like, these guys don't understand anything. Like, how can they be like this? And he gave me this pep talk, and I've been working on it ever since. And I do feel like for us, and that's not to say that we don't get, sometimes upset or need to take a break or whatever. But it helped me a lot when he gave me that talk. And then I was like, I'm the one, front lines, let's go. And once I put myself there, I was like, okay, I'm asking for this. So fine, take it. Come here.
And Bree is incredibly gifted academically. She's very intelligent, and more so than I am in a lot of ways. So we make a really good team in a lot of ways. I mean, she's definitely brain.
I just feel like you gave the internet entirely too much clickbait there. No offense to Bree, but
That's all right.
Yeah,
But I think though, sometimes that makes it even worse, right? Because, I mean, I'm sure Bree, coming from it more from an academic level, you're like, why don't you understand this? It's so simple. Versus, okay, I want you to understand it, but it's sometimes I think for me too, I get kind of caught in that, I don't know the words, but I want to explain it and keep explaining it and keep explaining it because I want somebody to understand it, whether or not they're ready to receive it. And so I feel like that for me is a real source of burnout, because I'm like, I just want you to get it. I just want you to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the filters, I mean, the barriers are up though. And that's the Zazie Todd study. I'm sure you might be familiar with it. The barriers to the adoption of humane methods or something like that.
Yeah. And I know barriers to adoption is the first part of it.
Yeah. And there are a lot of barriers of it. You're not always going to overcome those objections if you're dealing with someone who, say, bases their training philosophy on biblical ideas or, ideas of dominance or whatever, or the way that someone they trust in their family trains dogs,
Right.
or you know what I mean? So there's a lot to overcome there with different people, and it's a case-by-case basis. And not everyone has been trained in scientific literacy. Obviously, that's a big problem. And here in the United States and around the world, in my opinion, anyway, I think everyone should really know the scientific method inside and out. And we should use the spirit of that to vet our ideas, particularly in scientific professions. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like behavior, which is what we do.
Behavior's not a science. I thought you got the memo. So the other thing that I got for a question from Instagram was, how does your self-care look now versus when you guys maybe first started, or, when it was mostly just, like you're saying, putting out the YouTube videos and doing the actual, this is how we train versus this is how we train, but this is also who we are. I feel like sometimes we're able to compartmentalize those. So it was just a question of what does the self-care look like now versus then?
Well, you want me to go first, or do you want to go first? Or...
I feel like I have a pretty short answer,
Okay.
which is Zach has always walked the walk in our day-to-day life, although it has shown up harder on social media now. Like even 15 years ago in dog training classes, okay, 13, how long? I don't want to incorrectly
11.
date you. Even 11 years ago in dog training classes, we would talk about aversive, like we talked about all the same things that we talk about now, face to face, daily, from then to now, when we're working with people with their dogs, with our foster dogs. So yeah, I think that's my short answer. Is Zach hasn't really had to change too much. I had to catch up as a non-dog trainer because I was like, man, we're activists too. Like I thought I was just learning how to teach something. But I like it. It's great.
In terms of self-care, I mean, the greatest hits: exercise, meditation, or mindfulness, and making sure that we're getting outside and taking walks. Walks are a very therapeutic thing for both of us, I think.
We do walk a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we're stressed, we do. There are times where Zach, either one of us will be like, we need to take a walk, and that helps.
Yeah, we're to ignite brainstorms as well. Walks can help with that. I also play mini golf on my virtual reality a lot. That helps me kind of reset my mood. It's a very, it's a great game. I highly endorse it if anyone has an Oculus or whatever the Quest these days, I guess they're calling it. It's great. 4.9 stars.
Yep. Yeah, I think walking is our greatest tool, though. Their walks are great.
Walks are the best.
I learned when I was in college that you can even, depending, I don't want to overstate it because it depends on the severity, but I have in the past sometimes had minor panic attacks, and I learned that I can stop them by taking, like literally, even if I'm still stressed, if I make my legs go walk around the block, it like my fingers stop being numb. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I like biologically hacked myself here. This is great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
We have 2 therapy dogs for us, at least a therapeutic to me. Right? So that also helps.
So the last Instagram question before we get into the deeper topics is one that I got quite a few of, and I know you've answered it, but we're going to put a little bit of a different spin on it. The general consensus by a lot was, why not pursue certification for yourselves? But the twist we want to put on it is, how can we, while advocating for certification and regulation, also help the general public know that there are good trainers out there that don't have the access to those certifications currently? So it's kind of like a two-parter.
Yeah. Well, for the first part of the question, we are pursuing certifications. We're actually both signed up for an animal behavior course out of the University of Washington starting next month, actually.
Nice.
So that university.
It's a certificate in applied animal behavior.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a very good program.
Yeah.
You'll like
so
it.
We are pursuing that. Regarding certification amongst groups like, say, the Certification Council for the CCPDT, Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers, right? There are issues we have with joining these organizations due to their tolerance of aversive dog training methods that, they subscribe or were subscribing. I don't know where they are right now. They're reevaluating their position on Lima. As last we heard, that they are still least intrusive, minimally aversive, which is a bit problematic for modern dog training ethics, because there's no evidence to support the fact that aversives are needed in modern or in animal training, I should say. So, in terms of those traditional certifications, that's why I don't do it. When I first started training, this is about 22 years ago, I went to PetSmart. That was my first dog training job ever. I was competing in dog frisbee, needed a way to pay the bills. And so I did a really, as much smack as people like to talk about PetSmart certification program, it was 2 binders this thick that I went through too. And again, we certainly need to go beyond that for sure.
Were there ever
And so,
in those binders 2 decades ago? I'm wondering if there were aversives in those binders.
no, they were. I mean, I guess it would be technically Lima by our standards, but the best kind of Lima. But yeah, there was. But there's a lot that goes on there. And so the point of certification is to make sure that we keep up with modern standards, continuing education development, and that we're representing the cutting edge of what we've learned together. And so that remains true whether you have a certification or not. But just the second part of your question is really important too, because you're right. The barriers to get one of these certifications for some can be very challenging. It can be expensive. It can be ambiguous. It might require them having certain video skills and things like that they may not necessarily have. And so streamlining how we certify people in this profession would be better. I would like to see a required certification at the government level. That's I think that's what it'll take to fix it. So
right. But I think I think for me where it becomes muddy for guardians is that we're expecting guardians to do so much due diligence, right? Unfortunately, the way that this industry is that we're putting all of the work on them, right? To find the best trainer possible. And Karen and I have talked about it before too. It's like, okay, now there used to be at least this benchmark of, okay, somebody that's accredited or certified. And now we can't even rely on that as a measure of professional ethics, of, standard methods, of any of these things. So it's like, now, how do we bridge that gap for guardians of what are the things that you look for? Because if you can't rely on the certifications anymore, then you're only left with the person that says, well, I'm a trainer because I am. Right. So it's kind of like, we're kind of in this weird spot right now.
Yeah, I think, did you have something to say, or am I hogging the...
I was just thinking about,
the mic.
I was thinking about, sometime we have a friend named Dr. Lisa Rodusta. She's at the College of Veterinary Behaviorists, and we've spoken to her a little bit about this before. And it's not an answer, so I'll keep it brief, but she agreed that it's distressing that right now it's not easy to figure out how to recommend a dog trainer and know that they're going to use ethical, humane, modern methods.
Right.
You're right. Got to figure it out. But maybe Zach has something better.
Back in, I guess, March, I met with the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers, the Association of Professional Dog Trainers, IAABC.
The Joint Council. The Joint Council.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I'm the joint standards. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Practice?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the word for all of those organizations grouped together.
Oh, is it?
Council, because they have the joint standards and
right.
Yeah. And so, and I kind of was just wondering, when I met with them, I was wondering what the status was here. I mean, can we move this on, because scientific consensus has changed. We're 3 years post ABSAB position statement change, right? And so, and I'm still waiting to hear, or we are all collectively, I think, waiting to hear if they are going to move beyond Lima or not. And so that's kind of where we are. And so to answer your question, I think that would be a great step if we could just calibrate our certifying bodies with the modern welfare and ethical standards in our field. Then it can once again become a more reliable indicator as to the competence of someone in their dog training craft.
Right. In the meantime, like what advice would you have?
I mean, it does continue to put the pressure on the consumer, which you're so right when you say that. But, being able to ask the right questions, the buzzword questions that are very indicative. What type of training tools do you use? How do you feel about positive reinforcement for all dogs? Or, things like that. I have a list of, I know we've done that video before, but asking questions like that would
maybe I don't know. This is so off the cuff because I haven't really thought about this specific question lately, but maybe asking about a scenario. What would you do if I'm on a walk, my dog barks and lunges at another dog, in instances that can be difficult for the public to manage, like ask them to explain in advance what they would recommend, so that you can see at least they have a plan, whether or not you agree with it, instead of just being like, I'm going to wing it once I get into that situation.
Yeah. But then again, a lot of people, and any dog trainer would say, I need to understand more about that dog as well. So that also could be a legitimate answer.
That's a good answer though, right? I mean, that in itself is a good answer. Well, I'd have to, let's talk about your individual dog, because a lot of trainers aren't going to do that. Trainers, we use lightly, trainers aren't going to do that, right? They're just going to, well, I'm going to say all dogs are individual, but I'm going to then do the exact same thing for every single dog.
Right.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I would be cautious about with that particular point, right? If you give them the scenario and they say, well, I need to see every individual dog, that, it's still going to be some variation of aversive too. Whereas if you ask them how they feel about electric prong and shock collars being used on their students, then that's going to give you a much better answer some of the time.
Maybe tell me about, without disclosing private information, can you tell me about a dog you've worked with in the past, and how that went, even if it's not exactly the same?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that might be good. I would also say tread cautiously with board and trains, although I know there are people out there doing amazing board and trains, like Karen, for example, right? Don't you take dogs in sometimes? No?
Sometimes I used to do a Monday Manners, but I don't do that so much anymore. Our last guest we just had, Sparrow from Wiser Ways.
What? I'm
Yes.
so jealous.
He's focusing primarily on puppies for his board and train, but he's doing a phenomenal job. So.
Yeah. Completely
you're on the podcast. I'm gonna go listen. That's amazing. I thought you meant came to do, I don't know.
Oh, I did.
And I was like, that's fun.
Like, come here, let's go hike a mountain. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on.
But yeah, we'll put that out. Sparrow did talk a lot about how he's doing things different than what our traditional thoughts of a board and train are, because that's normally kind of like a red flag. We see that a lot. And so, so that would be really good, because he is doing a lot of things differently. And I really like that way that he's going with that.
So I want to just be mindful of everybody's time. I don't know how much time you guys have to dedicate to this, but I thought this might be an interesting way to transition as we're talking about people doing their due diligence, what people's certifications are, what their qualifications are, figuring out how to move the industry forward.